spread out as best. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to the Orange County Sheriff's Office Behavioral Response Unit introduction. Before we get started, we're going to play a short video. You guys don't need to capture it. We're going to send it to everyone as soon as we're done with the conference.
The Behavioral Response Unit is going to keep our clinicians from Devereux that are going to work with deputy sheriffs. They're going to be responding to calls for service related to mental illness, PTSD, and some substance abuse cases.
A mental health clinician is in a better position to help people who are in crisis. Many times our deputies, even though they're trained in crisis intervention, they don't always have all the tools they need to help people who are in crisis.
Devereux has experience with mobile response services, and this was an awesome opportunity for us to expand our skill set and be able to pair with the Sheriff's Office to serve more individuals in the community, especially that adult population.
They will be proactively on patrol. They'll be listening to calls. They'll be looking at our calls for service. They'll be working with our veterans. They'll be working with our homeless community. If a call goes out, they'll start listening to the call and heading that way.
Our model is the co-responder model, which pairs a deputy sheriff with a clinician, and they respond together.
We will let the patrol deputies get there first and see what's going on in the scene, and then have our behavioral response unit arrive on the scene and see how we can best help the person.
So the clinician and the deputy hopefully being able to combine their skills to engage this individual, find out what it is that they need from us, then be able to find out how can we further assist them, get them linked to ongoing services that can hopefully prevent any future crises.
Hi, my name's Delaney. I'm with the Behavioral Response.
Oh yeah.
I'm here to make sure everything's going okay with you.
Last heartbeat.
We spent some time talking about what our role is, what the policy is, how we're going to work together. We also got to hear from the clinicians, where they got to teach us and talk a little bit about what they do and how they do it.
These clinicians are master's level, working towards their clinical license for the state of Florida, and this is what their passion is. This is what they like to do.
The community wants us to be more involved in providing better services with our mental health community. And what better way to do it with a clinician who's prepared, not only with their education, but with their experience on dealing with somebody who's in crisis.
It is a pilot program, and what I'm hoping to see is that we do respond out to some of these cases, and the cases are de-escalated. And if it is successful, we want to expand the program and help our community even further.
I expect this is going to become a big part of the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I also believe it's going to be a big part of law enforcement overall.
All right, so thank you all for being here. In 2019, after seeing some of the national incidents involving people in mental health crisis around the country, we asked our staff here at the Sheriff's Office, what could we do to prevent some of these tragedies from happening? Even though many of our deputies are trained in crisis intervention, they don't have all the tools and training they need to help people who are experiencing mental health crisis. So my staff researched best practices from around the country. Major Carlos Torres, who you're going to hear from in a minute, is actually traveled to California and Miami this January to see what these other agencies were doing and what models they were doing. And we settled on the co-responder model, again, which pairs a mental health clinician with the deputy sheriff, and they will respond together to some of these calls. So today I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Devereux Advanced Behavioral Health, and a pilot program involving sheriff's deputies and mental health clinicians began earlier this week. The teams are already starting to respond to calls in our community. This week, they're just kind of going out there and going to all the different facilities and introducing themselves, but they're going to be answering calls for service. And so these calls of people in mental health crisis are calls that we receive every day. On average, every year we respond to about 8,000 calls for service of people in mental health crisis. So we are putting all of our deputies through crisis intervention training, and that is a huge help. But a mental health clinician is in a better position to help people who are in crisis. And just like the video said, this is what they're trained for. This is what they do. So historically, law enforcement will respond to these calls alone, involving people in mental crisis, and family members and friends are kind of stuck, and many times they don't want their loved ones to hurt themselves or others, so they call law enforcement. We respond very quickly, which is good, but sometimes we don't have all the training and tools needed to help people that are in mental crisis. And so to pair a deputy sheriff with one of these mental health clinicians, we believe is going to really help this community. So, the hope is that the clinicians will use all of their training and all their background to help some of these people in crisis to de-escalate and calm down, and really get them the service they need and help these incidents come to a peaceful resolution. And I know there are other models out there where a clinician just responds by themselves. But we didn't want to go with that. We thought it could be very dangerous for the clinicians. So that's why we're starting this pilot program. And I know there are other agencies in Central Florida, Orlando being one, that has a different model. And I'm glad the two agencies are trying these two different models. Maybe what we'll see is a combination of both. Maybe we'll see that one is better than the other. And like I said, this is a pilot program, but this is what they're going to be doing every single day for probably the next year. And so our plan would be, if this is successful, and we really think it's going to be, we think just the conversations I've had with community members, it has gone over really well. They're so glad we're doing this. And like I said, this is something that we've been working on for over a year. And the plan was to budget for it last budget. But that didn't work out. So we're using existing personnel and an existing budget to start the pilot program. But like I said, we are hoping that it is very successful, and we're hoping to expand it because we do respond to a lot of mental health calls where people are in crisis right away. So that's it for me for right now. And right now I'm going to introduce Major Carlos Torres, who I'm very proud of because he did a lot of the work involved in this. Major Torres.
Thank you, Sheriff. So we are super excited. I'm especially super excited because it's been a year in the making to get to this point. So I want to be able just to talk a little bit about the program and how the program has been developed here for Orange County. Not only did we do the academic research to see what would work best for our community, keep in mind that this is not a new concept to the law enforcement or the mental health community. Co-responder teams have been out for several decades in different parts of the United States and actually internationally. I had the opportunity to go to the West Coast of the United States and see their programs, as their programs have been established for quite some time. And what I was able to see, which is what I really liked, was seeing the dynamic between a law enforcement professional and a mental health professional working together seamlessly to come up with the best treatment plan for that individual who's in crisis. So when I came back, I was super excited. I told Sheriff Mina, I said, this is where I think we need to be going with this. And we started developing it. One of the things that we did, that I did initially, was I reached out to the experts in the field, and I got a lot of great technical assistance on how to best develop a program here for our community. So one of the things that we did was we wanted to make sure that not only did we have the best and qualified individuals for the program, but that we also had the best personalities, because you definitely need a good personality, a special personality to be able to, one, stay in a car together for this amount of time, but to be able to interact with each other to come up with the best solution for that case that's presented to them. So on the law enforcement side, we have a lot of years of experience. We have one of our deputies, Deputy Gonzalez, who's also a 20-year veteran of the U.S. Army. So that brings that different perspective to the team. As we know, we'll be encountering some of our veterans who potentially may be in crisis. On our clinician side, we have a lot of years of experience. They come a lot of years with experience also dealing in the youth component of it, which we felt was very important because as we encounter individuals who have crisis doesn't have an age and it doesn't differentiate when somebody needs help. So it was very important for us to have that expertise, which Devereux brings to the table for us in this program. So in the last couple of weeks, this team has come together, and it's very remarkable to see how individuals who've never met each other working together, they've already started creating a bond, and which is what we were looking for. We're looking for that specific interaction where they could cohesively just work and come up with solutions to a problem. During their training, because the sheriff mentioned that they went through training, during their training, we want to make sure that both of their disciplines were exposed to what they do, because we wanted our clinician teams to understand what law enforcement does, and we wanted our law enforcement team to understand what our clinicians do. This will help them when they're actually out on the field responding to calls to have a better understanding of what they do. Part of the training that we did here was some crisis intervention training scenarios. We did some de-escalation training. We went to our simulator, which is very interesting to see how they interacted together, which is exactly what I wanted to see. And they interacted very, very well. So as you can see behind me, one of the things that we discussed was their uniform. What were they going to wear? So we decided to go with a little bit more of a softer approach, but still remaining understandably that these individuals are law enforcement. But we wanted to do it in a manner where it didn't look as intimidating as perhaps maybe this uniform would look like. Our clinician team has a uniform, and their uniform, one is in a different color because we wanted to, once again, indicate that difference between who our clinician teams are and who our law enforcement teams are. And they love their uniforms. I love the uniforms. So I think it's going to be a really good hit for us when we're out there in the field, where it's going to be easily identifiable that, one, the Orange County Sheriff's Office is out here as a team, as the behavioral response unit. Later on, we'll be able to see also what kind of vehicles that we're going to be using. The vehicles that we're going to be using are in a different configuration from what you normally see in a law enforcement vehicle, and there's various reasons for that. One is so the clinician can actually interact with the subject if he is being transported in an easier and safer manner. Two, those vehicles will also allow us to use them as training vehicles. So if somebody who wants to learn about the program, another law enforcement agency, another clinician team, they can actually ride with us, and allows us to still continue to do our job without us having to put that car out of service or that team out of service. Behind me, we have two supervisory components, which is very important in this team. We have a law enforcement supervisory component, and we have a clinician supervisory component. The reason why we need them, we call them the tiebreakers. The teams will go out, and sometimes they may come to a standstill on what the best treatment plan would be for this individual. That's when the supervisors get involved. Supervisors now will collectively decide what is best for this individual and give direction to the team. Plus, they'll have the day-to-day supervision of the team. And lastly, we have an extra team, which is the supervisory team, because from the supervisor in the clinician side and the law enforcement side, they will actually be riding together, and they will also be a team at given times during this program. So I want to now also pass it on to Kristen from Devereux so she can talk about the clinician side and their involvement into this program. So Kristen.
Thank you. I first want to express my excitement and my gratitude on behalf of Devereux to the Orange County Sheriff's Office for this opportunity. The co-responder model is a fantastic way for clinicians to be able to enhance their skill set in de-escalation and resolving crises. and taking a look at the different models through research that throughout the country, throughout the world, there's lots of models, but the co-responder model really enhances the safety component for clinicians to be able to access folks in the community and safely assess them, figure out what they can do for them. And so it's an excellent collaboration and a great opportunity for us. And as the major indicated, so my clinicians that are selected for this team, they have experience with Devereux's Mobile Crisis Services program serving youth and young adults up to the age of 24. And we know that mental health crises can extend way beyond that period of time. But looking at the opportunity to serve the larger community in Orange County, the co-responder model just seemed to be a great fit for Devereux. And we're very, very excited. So thank you.
All right. So we're gonna take some questions, and I also want to say, part of the interesting part about this pilot program will be, so obviously they're going to be responding to these calls, and so this team is going to become familiar with some of our frequent callers, because we do have family members and friends who call us about their loved ones who are in crisis a lot. So they can either respond, or they can pass along important information to the deputies who are already responding, such as, hey, this person is a veteran and this is what calms him or her down. So very, very excited about it, and very, very excited that they're going to get to know a lot of people in our community and help us out. So this time I'll take some questions.
I wanted to hear about, Nathan Torres was talking about treatment plans, and I wanted to hear, what are some of the options when you guys are headed out on these calls? What will be, will there be an easy plan, take them to this place, or what are we looking at for solutions or treatment?
I'll defer to Kristen on that one first.
So when we're talking about treatment plans, we're generally looking at what's going to happen immediately as well as the long term. So with that immediate situation, what we're hoping is we can resolve the crisis so they can remain in the community. If they can safely stay at home or stay in their school, stay at work, that would be the great success that we're going for. But we have been building relationships with the crisis stabilization units throughout the community, just making sure that they know that we are in existence now and that we might need their support when someone is in a significant enough crisis, or the risk level is significant enough that they need to be hospitalized. That would be one of the access points for treatment for them. Also, substance abuse treatment programs, we would be able to assist them with getting referred to those types of things, and everything from outpatient mental health services, intensive residential programs, also making sure that we're taking a look at those folks that might have an autism spectrum disorder and could benefit from more specialized services in that arena.
And will everyone, so any call that you go on, do you expect to make a specific treatment plan that includes long-term treatment as well, or will it depend on the call?
Right, depending on what their primary issue or concern is, that risk level, the treatment plan is going to be extremely individualized as far as the next steps taken with them in the immediate moment, as well as any future referrals and treatment that we can provide.
And so in that same aspect, do you expect to be doing a lot of follow-up with people and returning even if there isn't a specific emergency call?
Yes, that's a great point, because that follow-up piece and being able to continue to engage with that person is how we can really establish rapport. It's how we can really help them stay engaged in their services once they're referred. Being able to build that relationship with the individual and that trust is what we're hoping to be able to do through the follow-up piece, that the next day post-crisis, little things are a little calmer, being able to come back into their home, their where they are in the community, and just kind of follow up with them, just make sure that, so the things that we talked about referring you to yesterday, we'd still really like to do that for you. And then that warm handoff to the other providers is also a really important piece.
Sure, Jeff, this would be for you or Carlos. I would assume that this approach and law enforcement agencies around the country are adopting, similar type models. obviously the end game on this is you're hoping that you have a lot fewer cases where lethal force is required.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. I'm a member of the IACP. I've seen these other models. I've seen some of the tragedies that have happened across our country involving law enforcement and people who are in crisis. And, maybe there was a different way. Maybe we could have done something differently. And if you just listen to Kristen speak and the expertise coming from the clinician side, I think it's going to be a huge help. I think situations are going to be de-escalated, and I do love the follow-up piece, because like we respond to 8,000 of these calls every single year, and the follow-up may or may not be there, but we know, especially with some of the people who are frequently calling, or their family and friends are frequently calling with us, we'll have those relationships developed beforehand. And we even anticipate, hey, can you send the deputy and the young lady who came out 2 days ago, and those sort of things. And I think that's really going to help.
What is the Roxana for the newspaper? What is the difference between Baker Act and this new program, and do you need judge order to intervene?
I didn't understand all that, but there really is, there may be times when people have to be committed under the Baker Act, even in this program. But really, the goal is to help de-escalate some of these violent situations, get people the services they need. And as Kristen, kind of described, there may not be a need to take someone into custody, to take them to the hospital. They have all this knowledge and training, and they're like, well, we know about this one service that would be perfect for this person in this certain situation. And all this stuff that law enforcement can't possibly know. It doesn't have all of the training and the tools to deal with.
We are outlet for Spanish people. You have programs for speaking.
Renee.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Renee is a fully bilingual.
Bueno, sí, ¿cuál es la pregunta? Aquí estoy. Aquí estoy.
¿Puede usted explicar cómo va a ser este programa?
Can we do that one? We'll do that one afterwards, because we're going to on that question afterwards with Renee.
Cuando terminamos. Sí.
One of the things that I wanted to highlight that the sheriff just mentioned as well is that what Kristen said is, law enforcement, when we go to a call by ourselves, we have very limited resources, and our resources are either they meet the criteria for an involuntary Baker Act, or simply they don't meet the criteria and we leave them where they're at and we refer them out. Well, what we are having now with this awesome team is that the resources are with us, and we are bridging that gap where that individual doesn't fall out of our view, because now the resources that we need are with us in real time. So there is none of that lag time, where the lag time would happen where it's afterwards and there's no appropriate follow-up. So the importance of this team is, one, it's real time, and two, it's the appropriate follow-up that they're going to be doing afterwards.
Carlos, you talk about your deputies have crisis intervention training. Would a good comparison be, you go to your family doctor for like the average thing, that if you've got a broken ankle, you go to an orthopedic surgeon, or if you have some specialty, you go to that. Would that be a good comparison in this case?
That's correct. So this team here behind me has not only do they have the basic CIT, which is a crisis intervention, but they also have experience in dealing with crisis situations. And so with our clinician team and our deputy team together, it is like going to the specialist, where they're going to get more advanced care or service, if you want to call it that. And what we're hoping is that now they becoming a unit of resource for our deputies. Deputies can now and will be reaching out to the team for more advice. We know that this is a pilot program. 2 teams right now is to get started, and we can see how the team develops. But we're still going to be out there, providing calls for service, giving the best service we can. We're just now have an enhancement tool that we didn't have before.
So are they like a special detail, much like, say, the SWAT team, or are they out patrolling on an everyday basis? Or do they go countywide wherever they're needed?
They're going to go countywide wherever they're needed. The way we have a structure right now, we'll have a team on the east side. We'll have a team on the west side. They will be out there available, listening to calls for service, assessing calls, going to calls, fielding phone calls, acting as liaisons. So they're actually going to be out in the community, which is very important because as a call comes out, time is of the essence. And so we don't want to wait any longer to provide that service that that person may need. And by the team being out there in real time, they're quickly to respond. Like we said initially, they are a secondary response unit, meaning our deputies will still be the initial first responders to make sure that the scene is stabilized so we can bring our clinician teams in to give a better assessment.
Was there a specific incident that facilitated the forming of the DRU, or was this recognizing an ongoing issue?
I think the signs of the times is what really truly has launched us. Sheriff Mina has had a vision about wanting to do more with mental health community. Remember, this is all about us de-escalating situations, and if we have better resources, better tools to get that accomplished, why not take advantage of that and get it done?
It sounds like the team has been out on a few calls this week. I'd love to hear from some of the members about what those calls or interactions were like.
This week they we called it a soft launch. So they were doing other functions as a team together, a lot of training, a lot of introductions, a lot of stuff. So physically yet, the team has really to get their hands fully, which we expect now this week coming up is when they're going to be out there doing a lot of stuff.
Very good.
If you guys are interested in seeing the vehicle, since it is quite a special arrangement, we can take you downstairs, park outside, we can show you around that. One of the clinicians or one of the deputies can explain the makeup of it and what kind of things. If you want to take a minute to break down, we'll take you downstairs, you can do that whenever you do it.
Sure.